podcast is Vampire Diaries, Series 4, Episode 2, Memorial, and I'm Tatum.
I'm Lauren.
Andy.
And I'm Danny.
Previously on the Vampire Diaries,
really boring crap happened.
Yes, some really boring shit happened. No, previously on the Vampire Diaries, in the premiere episode of Season 4, Elena turned into a vampire, and a load of the council members who had found out about all the vampires in the town were blown up by Pastor Young, who was on some kind of mission. And there we go. So this episode, we saw, we had a new hunter being introduced, Connor, who's just so sexy. And Elena was having trouble keeping blood down, and she was trying different methods in order to keep her from starving to death. So Stefan was a butthole in this episode. Discuss, people.
That's my quote.
He was very controlling, and when things didn't go his way, he got pissed off.
In the first episode, he's completely fine with respecting Elena's choice to die, and he's all about trying to find her a way out of becoming a vampire.
If it doesn't make him look good, then it's not going to happen.
Exactly. Because it's upsetting him and it's not reflecting good on him, he's pissed off with Elena's choices. She wants to talk to Caroline about getting some help. She goes to Damon for help, but he doesn't like that. It's abusive, to be honest, because what is the first thing that an abusive boyfriend does to their girlfriend? They separate them from everyone else around them.
I think Stefan has really clear idea of what he wants Elena to be.
Yeah.
And now that she's a vampire, which is what he wanted for a long time,
he's so happy
mold
about
her into his idea of a vampire. And her having ideas and wanting to drink human blood and asking help from vampires who do drink human blood goes against his beliefs.
Yeah.
So in his head, he's actually doing her a favour by saying, well, human blood is bad, you should do it the way I do it.
Yeah.
Because everything I do is actually right.
Yeah, because he's got this pure image of her. This is what she looks like. She's wonderful. Look at she's on this pedestal because she's an angel and she's a perfect being. And now that she's a vampire, the only way that he can keep hold of that image of her is for her to never spill a drop of human blood.
It's like everyone can have choices as long as it's...
They're my choices.
Yeah, as long as it's his choice.
That's why he was shutting her down when she was trying to talk to him about the fact that the animal blood made her sick.
He just ignored it.
He did.
He was like, oh my god.
He just glossed over it, didn't he? He just glossed over it.
It made me sick too. Here, let's have some champagne to celebrate. I'm like, what are you doing? These are not things you celebrate.
He was like, you don't need help. You've done everything you need to do.
Everything is
Celebrate
fine.
and ignore everything that's bad because you've got through the first step. And she was like, well, okay then, because my life is about making you happy.
But she wasn't though, really. Even then, she was like, okay, then I'll pretend to play this game with you, and then I'll go and get some actual help from someone who's going to give it.
Yeah.
It's only her MO with Stefan, like all the way back in season 1, when Stefan was like, Damon's so bad, we have to kill him. She was like, oh yes, honey, whatever you say. But then she didn't actually feel that way. She just had to keep up appearances.
Yeah, but I think she did. I think she kind of did in the early seasons. He conditioned her. Yeah, he conditioned her into thinking that his way was the best way. Before, she was living in that denial land with Stefan. Now she's like, okay, I will let you live there, but I'm going to go and get shit done. I still don't get why she's so gung-ho about getting help so she doesn't die when she really wants to die at the beginning of last episode, but whatever.
Damon.
I don't think it's that. It's the fact that, she wanted to choose her own death, and in that moment in the car, she chose her death and she was fine with it. But now she's been forced back into this role.
Yeah,
and she's no longer in a situation where she can kind of say, you know what, I can die with dignity, I've chosen my own path.
So anyway, the other thing that really pissed me off about Stefan in this episode was how he treated Bonnie, because I hated that, because he turns up and he's all, oh, let me hug you because I'm your friend, even though I haven't been to see how you are recently, and I'm only actually here to get something from you. And she just accepts it and says, okay, let me help you. This is the very first time I've ever had Bonnie feels this is important.
It's not the first time, but it's the first time I'll willingly admit to it.
She actually made me cry because she'd been in that house all by herself, because we still don't know where her father is. He's still yet to exist. And no one has gone to see her. You poor little girl. You poor fucker.
You know when Stefan went to help Caroline, and he went to her house, and he arranged the whole sleepover with the girls and stuff. That came from like a really nice place.
Yeah.
And it was like a really spontaneous thing for him to do. But with Bonnie, he goes to her because he actually needs her help. So he's kind of like going there and it's like, okay, we're friends, you know, how are you doing? But what he really wants is her help.
No one treats her like a friend. No one does things for Bonnie just for Bonnie's sake.
And Bonnie has tried to die for them several times.
I
and
know.
she gets nothing.
And I'm starting to feel sorry for her now.
Bonnie and Damon actually have more in common than they realise. We're not shipping Damon here. It's just...
Oh my god.
Well, to be honest, actually, you've got a bit of a point there, because
Well, I said that ages ago.
everyone just ignores Damon's ideas and theories and plans because he is evil, with quote marks, therefore he must be wrong, and he always turns out to be right. And Bonnie does all these things for them. She's always been used as a plot device, but I've just realised that she's also used as a plot device by the characters themselves, which is even worse.
In the same way that Damon would do anything to protect the people he loves, Bonnie would do the same thing for Elena. I think there's like a quote in season 1 where she was just like, I'd die for her. Yeah. And she's going to go into some like creepy evil witch mode.
I wouldn't blame her after how she's been treated. I wouldn't blame her at all, apart from the fact that she's stealing Willow's storyline, and I won't have that. But other than that, I wouldn't blame her. Caroline was right there watching it happen in front of her, and instead of being there to comfort her friend, she's off shagging her boyfriend.
Well, that's what Caroline does. She is a ridiculous character.
She even expositions, is that the right word? About her own stuff. Oh, I'm having sex. Oh, I shouldn't be having sex because, you know, I should be grieving. It's like, let's just talk about my own character for a moment here so that
I think she was actually
knows that I'm not a terrible person for doing what I'm doing.
Well, that's because she stopped becoming a character.
Yeah.
She stopped being a character so long ago.
a mouthpiece, basically.
She is. She's a mouthpiece. She's a literary device.
That whole scene with her and Tyler was done really, like, on purpose. It wasn't really about Caroline and Tyler, because
it was about Damon and Elena.
They put it back to back with the Damon and Elena blood sharing scene, which was disgusting, by the way.
I don't like it when it's vampires. It's disgusting.
It's so wrong.
I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. I'm a bit of a biter anyway. So basically, they were euphoric, Damon and Elena. Damon had on his orgasm face, and Elena was just sort of falling all over herself.
Humping his leg. It was brilliant.
Exactly, humping his leg. It was basically fornication going on right there, and then they back to back it with Caroline and Tyler, and Caroline saying, "No, this is wrong." That was a very obvious statement from the writers that what Damon and Elena were doing was wrong.
I don't even think it was wrong. Screw them. Tyler, why are you declaring your love to Caroline? You don't love her, you love Jeremy.
Just that whole relationship between Caroline and Tyler has kind of sailed, so it felt really awkward to watch.
It's like they can't write a relationship without there being some form of a triangle in there. I mean, first of all, they had, with Jeremy and Bonnie, they had to reintroduce Anna. Bonnie and Jamie get together, and they had to reintroduce Jeremy into that. And then there's Caroline, Tyler, and Matt. And then once you realised that Matt wasn't going to be a viable option again, they brought in Klaus. It's like they cannot write a relationship that is just about two people. There always has to be a love triangle aspect to it, and it's weird. Okay, should we talk about Elena now, seeing as she is the main character?
Oh, my baby.
Oh, I just felt so sorry for her. I felt so sorry for her because she just didn't know where to turn.
When she kind of freaks out in the church and then she goes and she locks herself in the bathroom. And I think I started crying there. Mostly from disgust, but also I felt sorry for her.
I know Dee was going nuts about the fact that why did she leave the toilet to go and throw up?
She got out of the room and she was still sick. Who does that?
Maybe she thought she was done, and then she got up.
Yeah.
And then, it was like, well, no, I'm not done.
And then she couldn't lean over to be sick in the basin. She had to be sick down herself.
Throw up all over the mirror. She couldn't talk to Stefan. I felt really bad for her, even though part of me just says, well, that's because he's useless. Please move on from this relationship because it sucks. But at the same time, he's meant to be the person that she loves. He's meant to be the person that she can rely on. That was part of her choice. Do you know what I mean? I choose Stefan because he makes me feel again. I choose Stefan because he's been there for me.
I think
but he's not there for her now.
I think it just leads on from what I said last week about them sitting on the roof together and kind of being like, we're going to be together forever. But what it really was conversation about all the problems that they're going to face. And this was the first episode where you start to see that happen, especially when she feeds on Damon, and then the episode progresses, and then they end up in the same exact positions that Damon and Elena were in at the end of one of the season 3 episodes. When does he rescue her from the hospital in that episode? I don't know,
he takes her back from the hospital and puts her in the chair.
Yeah.
But what was interesting was that where Stefan was is exactly where he was.
Exactly, and she was sitting in the exact same chair with the exact same kind of facial expression
and this time Damon wasn't
and
there.
And he even gives her a drink, the same drink, and it kind of goes from that kind of physical parallel to him kind of arguing to her, and you can't miss the parallel there where Damon kind of moves from the back of the couch to sit right with her and puts his hand on his knees and is like, you know, I'm never going to leave you again, I'll always be here, I'm your friend, you know, you can lean on me. And Stefan's kind of like, well, you shouldn't have done this. It's all about me.
He's basically telling her not to lean on Damon.
He's an over-jealous boyfriend is what he is. Because even if you take away the fact that the blood-sharing thing is meant to be really, really intimate and you're only meant to do it with your one true love or whatever, Damon is still her friend. At no point did her choice mean that she could not be friends with Damon.
Damon was supposed to leave town.
He was. Well, yeah, but only because Stefan's
a controlling bastard.
Manipulated him into it.
It wasn't just Stefan that agreed to that. It was Stefan and Damon's idea. You know, whoever she picks, the other one will leave.
No, that was all Stefan's idea, and Damon just gave in to him. Damon just said, yeah, okay. I really feel like she should be able to lean on Stefan, but I do like the fact that she can't, because he's too busy being in denial about the fact that she has to be the perfect vampire because she can no longer be the perfect human. I think this is going to be this is the first of their problems that they're going to have to face in their relationship this season.
And as always, there's always the Damon thing where he's so concerned with her being close to Damon that he forgets to actually see the problem in front of him, where like she's perfectly willing to lean on him at first, but he's never there when she needs him, and it always ends up being Damon. And eventually, what's going to happen is he's just going to end up being pushed out, and it'll go to the point where she'll turn around and be like, you weren't there when I needed you.
I think this actually spells good things for the end of Stefan and Elena towards the end of this season, because I'm really hoping that they're showing the first of their problems, that they're going to continue to work through all of their other problems, and so that they finally realise that there are actually so many problems.
They might resolve the problems.
Well, maybe they will, but I think that during that, while they do it, Elena might open her eyes and realise that actually this perfect relationship that she chose, that was apparently the best choice she'd ever made, wasn't actually as good as she thought it always was.
I think she already knows that.
Well, yeah, but at the minute she's in denial about it, because she has been in denial about it. That's part of the Stefan and Elena relationship dynamic, is that they're both in denial. He's in denial about the fact that she's not as perfect as he thinks she is, and she's in denial about the fact that their relationship isn't as perfect as she wants it to be.
Yeah, when we were in the live watch before, Lauren made this point about how when they were sitting together on the couch or wherever it was, and Elena starts crying and she's apologising, and then all of a sudden she kind of switches and she says, why am I crying?
Yeah.
I shouldn't be crying. I'm actually really angry right now. And I thought, okay, for the first time that we've actually seen her kind of react to Stefan in a way that's not apologetic or denial or anything, she kind of turns around and she says, I shouldn't actually be angry. Why are you making me angry? I have so many other problems. Why are you pushing this on me?
And that is the thing. When she's with him, she spends an awful lot of her time crying. She doesn't do that when she's with Damon.
I think she says this really, really good line when she's saying that to Stefan. She says something like, my whole life is like a funeral. All I do every day is grieve. I thought that's such an insight into who she is, because when you talk about Stefan and Elena, it's about this guy who basically brought her back to life and gave her a reason to be alive, but the way
reality,
she says it,
she didn't.
She's alive, but she's not actually living.
The whole point of her choice when she's talking to Matt in the season finale was that Stefan was the one who was there for her. Stefan taught her how to live, helped her live, and after everyone had died around her and things. But now it's getting to the point, that line that Tatum brought up, that she said, all she does is grieve, that kind of negates what she said to Matt about Stefan.
The point of being a vampire is all of a sudden she can't actually run from these feelings.
Exactly.
So when she's feeling emotional, it just comes out and she can't take it back.